Alright, so the story goes like this. A long time ago, around 360 million years ago, mammals left the water and evolved to live on land. These terrestrial mammals dominated the land for approximately 300 million years, but it wasn't until 60 million years ago that the ancestors of cetaceans moved back into the water and evolved. Cetaceans, which include dolphins, whales, and porpoises, they are an order of mammals that originated in the Eocene epoch, shown right here, approximately 50 million years ago. These cetaceans, the early cetaceans, include these five right here. We have the Pachycetidae, the Amblycetidae, the Remingtonicidae, the Protocidae, the Basilauridae, and the more modern whale, the one that, if you go whale watching, you'll see some of those or on TV. You have the Ceti. Some of the major changes that have occurred in the past 50 million years include the loss of hair, high limbs, the development of a stronger and more powerful tail, blowholes, and eyes on the sides of their heads. So some of the evidence that support these changes include fossils that have been found in India and Pakistan. So for the first one that I'd like to talk about is the Pachycetidae, shown here in this photograph right here. But before I go into further details, I'd like to talk about these two right here. Figure, or A right here, is the Pachycetidae, and B is the terrestrial mammal that was before the Pachycetidae. This mammal right here was completely terrestrial. It didn't go on water, but the Pachycetidae lived amphibiously. But if you compare these two, the Pachycetidae is bigger than the one before. It has a longer vertebrae and a bigger head, but the bones that they have are pretty similar. The Pachycetidae, which is the first cetacean, originated about 50 million years ago. It had 4 legs and lived amphibiously, like I mentioned before. And the way we know this is that through fossils, it has been linked to river channels, which suggests that it lived in an aquatic habitat. An interesting thing about the Pachycetidae and the rest of the family of cetaceans is the sigmoid process in the skull. What this is a structure that is shaped like the letter S that is found on their skull. And it's not only for the Pachycetidae, but it's found in the rest of the cetaceans. An interesting thing about this one too is that the orbits, or the eye sockets, are located on top of the skull. It's very common for aquatic animals to have these orbits located on top of the skull because they are used to see upwards on emerged objects. Also, it has osteosclerotic limb bones, and what that is it's a heavy bone. Here, this illustration here. It's a heavy bone that has the cortical bone, which is the heavy bone, and the medullary cavity, which is the bone marrow. And for Pachycetidae, the bone marrow makes up around 50% of the total bone structure, thus suggesting that it lived in an aquatic habitat. If you compare the percentage of bone marrow to terrestrial mammals have a larger percentage of bone marrow because it makes their bones lighter, thus making it easier for them to run on land. The next one that I'd like to talk about is the Amblycetidae. If you compare the Amblycetidae here and the Pachycetidae, the Amblycetidae is a lot bigger with a longer vertebrae, and also it has a smaller hind limb compared to the Pachycetidae, but even though it was smaller, it was still strong enough for it to support it on land. The Amblycetidae originated about 49 million years ago, which is about a million years after the Pachycetidae. It is considered to be the first marine cetacean, and it, just like the Pachycetidae, it had osteosclerotic limb bones, except for this one had the bone marrow was composed of around 57% of the total bone structure. Some of the changes from the Pachycidae to the Emblycidae is the webbed hands and feet. It also had a robust tail vertebrae, which suggests that it had a very muscular tail that was used to propel them in water. And along with other changes that occurred are the orbits or the eye sockets that started to move from the top of their skull to more of the side of the skull. So that's another interesting change that happened in about a million years.
So the next family is the Remingtonocetidae, and they're considered the long-snouted cetaceans. They originated about 48 million years ago, and they had large ears set far apart on their skull, and this helped with directional hearing underwater. They also had long pads of fat that connected their lower jaw to their middle ear, and this is a trait that is also present in modern whales, and this just helps to amplify and transmit the sound underwater. Their skeletal structures also showed that they had very short legs and a long tail, and this shows that they swam underwater, used their tails. However, their legs were still able to support them on land. So this diagram shows the nasal openings and the nasal bones of the ancient cetaceans and then the modern cetacean. And so as you can see here, starting with the Pachycetus, the nasal opening is located at the tip of the snout, and with time it progresses further posterior back towards the skull. The nasal bone also decreases in size. So here with the Remingtonocetidae, it's located a little bit further, and then with time, if we jump forward to the modern whale, you can see that it's completely on top of the skull. And so this foreshadowed the development of the blowhole, which is the ability of an animal, of an aquatic animal, to still breathe while being submerged underwater. And then the Protocetidae was the next cetacean, and it is considered the cetacean that conquered the ocean. They originated about 45 million years ago, and they spent most of their time in water. However, they still were able to go on land to find mates and to give birth. However, they spent their time in water hunting for food. Just like with the Remingtonocetidae, they also had nasal openings that were located further posterior on their snouts. The Basilosauridae are considered the first fully aquatic cetaceans. So as you can see by the picture, their hind limbs are very reduced and their forelimbs are flippers, so they did not have any way of supporting their body on land, so they were fully aquatic. And they originated about 41 million years ago. Their skeletons were found in what once would have been a marine environment, further suggesting that they lived in the ocean. So now at this point, they had blowholes and short necks that were very similar to modern whales. They also had, as I already mentioned, forelimbs that were shaped like flippers, and they also had a small pelvis that was detached from their vertebrae. And so what this allowed them to do is have a larger range of motion when they were swimming underwater. And so regarding their tail movement, there's a common misconception that whales are closely related to fish. However, when you think about a fish swimming, their tail moves from side to side, whereas with a whale, it moves up and down. And so now picture a dog or another terrestrial mammal running. Their vertebrae moves up and down. So this links the connection to their terrestrial heritage. This diagram of the phylogenetic tree shows the bone structures of the pelvic bone and the rest of the leg bones and the Ambulocetidae, the Basilosauridae, which this is the Ambulocetidae, the Basilosauridae, and then modern whales. So you can see that over time, the Ambulocetidae had the pelvic bone, the femur, the fibula, the tibia, the tarsals, metatarsals, and the phalanges. They were all there, fully developed. However, with time, you can see that they decreased in size and they weren't as developed. This was due to the reason that they didn't need to use it in water. And so the Basilosauridae also had reduced hind limbs. And then Mysticeti are considered the modern whales, and they originated about 34 million years ago. So three traits that differentiate modern whales today from their ancestors are echolocation, insulating blubber, and baleen plates, which are in some species. So echolocation is when they send out a signal and this sound bounces back off an object and they are able to visualize their surroundings. Insulating blubber was useful for them since they're mammals, they're warm-blooded, they need a way to regulate and keep their body temperature stable in cold waters. And then baleen plates allowed them to bolt feed first for prey using the strainers in their mouths. However, this is only in some species, not in all. And so just in conclusion, overall, now modern whales, black hair, they have short necks, they have blowholes, they have flippers, long tails, very streamlined bodies as compared to their ancient ancestors. However, some of these characteristics are still present in the embryo, like hair and the development of hind limbs.
Whales have a number of vestigial features characteristic of terrestrial mammals, confirming that the direction of the descent was from terrestrial to an aquatic species. One of these characteristics is the external ear is visible in most whales, yet the ear canal is closed, so they're not allowed to use their ears to hear. Like she said, they use echolocation. But they have a number of small muscles devoted to these ears, showing that there was a time when they moved the ears to hear, which is a behavioral trait typically used by terrestrial mammals for directional hearing. Unlike whales' ancient mammalian ancestors, they lack a hair coat. This was most likely an adaptation to improve locomotion and reduce friction in the water. By studying dolphins and whales, since they are both cetaceans, they have similar embryology. So by studying dolphins, you're able to conclude information about whales. And it has been seen that dolphins often have whiskers, which is a sign of mammalian heritage. It is also seen that during embryology, whales develop a body coat, but as the embryo fully develops, the hair disappears, also showing signs of mammalian heritage. During week 4 to week 9 of embryology, dolphins are shown development of the hind limb and the forelimb, which the hind limb and the forelimb typically stop and disappear as the embryo fully develops. But there are rare cases where there's a visible hind limb protruding, as seen here, but it's too small to support the animal on land. Going back to the phylogenetic tree, Rhyolidae are known to be the closest relatives to cetaceans, and Rhyolidae are even-toed ungulates such as hippos, deer, and hippopotamus. And it is seen through studying the ankle bone that hippopotamus are the closest relatives to cetaceans. And Pakicetus are the first cetaceans, and they have a similar bone structure to the pig and the deer. And hippopotamus are the closest relatives to cetaceans because they are aquatic, and in 2007, bone skeletons were found in the Himalayas of hippopotamus showing similar features to cetaceans. It is unclear as to why these terrestrial mammals went into the water 50 million years ago. Maybe it was because of a richer food source or a refugee of danger, but over time, natural selection selected for traits that allowed them to become more adapted to the aquatic environment. And it will be interesting to see where the direction of descent from whales goes in the next 50 million years. Yeah, we won't be there, but.
Thank you. All right, do we have questions for this group? So how do we know the old ones didn't have echolocation? So you said that's something that's only new to modern whales?
Right. I think, and I didn't research this, but I feel like I learned about it in the past. I think modern whales and dolphins have a structure in their brain that allows them to, I guess, interpret the echolocation. And this was not, it never came up in the research that the ancient families had this kind of
And also,
structure.
the opening to their ear canal could have not been closed as it is in the modern whales.
Yeah, so the older ones have that open.
Yes.
The modern ones have that closed, yeah.
Is there a lot of fossil evidence for like
There-
this tree?
There is a lot in India and Pakistan especially because that area used to be an ocean back 50 million years ago and before that, so lots of
Then there's also some that have been found, like, I'm not sure if it's eastern or western United States, but some
Right.
have been found in the United States.
because once they became the Basilosauridae, they were able to move all around the world. So after that, they are found around the world.
Yeah.
Questions? All right, thank you.